Okay, how do you want to start? Also, just assume that we're just recording. So.
Okay. Is there the ditty?
Yes. Welcome to You Write, the podcast where creativity meets community.
I'm Rachel.
And I'm Matt.
Each week on You Write, we challenge our listeners to write a story in just 30 minutes, using 3 of 5 randomly generated words.
It's a fun and fast-paced exercise to spark your imagination and get those creative juices flowing.
We'll read your submissions, offer feedback, and discuss the unique twists and turns of each story.
Whether you're an aspiring author or just love a good tale, You Write is your place to explore the endless possibilities of storytelling.
So grab a pen, get comfy, and let's dive into this week's stories.
Remember, the only limit is your imagination. Let's see what you've got.
And also the 30 minutes.
Also 30 minutes, yes, of course.
Yes.
So, since this is episode 1, I think it's safe to assume that we don't actually have any listener-submitted stories.
Right, because we haven't had any listeners yet.
Right.
So,
Because there's literally nothing to listen to.
right, there hasn't been up until now.
Right.
Which actually you can't listen to yet because it hasn't been published yet. Right?
Unless you're listening to it right now, in which case we're time traveling.
And exactly. Or unless you're one of us, which, well, we did write stories. So
We did.
Actually, the listeners did write.
So, just to give people an idea of where we are for this week, since it's episode 1, we wanted to kind of lay the groundwork, the framework, if you will,
I will.
of the way these episodes will go. So, as we mentioned, we give you 5 randomly generated words, and you have to use 3 of them.
But you can use all 5 if you want. Or you could even use 4. But if you use 2, then you're screwing up.
Right. Yeah. Major problems if we don't see at least 3 of those words.
Yes.
Of course, we're kidding, right?
Right. We write.
Right. Yeah, we're kidding.
Right.
Yeah.
You write.
Wait, are we kidding?
Not really.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But the idea is that we'll give a theme or a trope that we're trying to write for each episode. And for episode 1, we thought it would be fun to try and write a detective story.
Bum, bum, bum.
How'd you feel about writing a detective story?
I thought it was really exciting and fun. It was a challenge to do that in 30 minutes. So, therefore, my story is, it hasn't been hashed out. There hasn't really been a conclusion met. But I don't know, that's kind of exciting and makes it even more mysterious, which a detective story is supposed to be mysterious. So, yeah. But it was quite thrilling to write. Very exciting. Yeah. How did you feel about it?
I thought it was fun. It's fun. I think a normal problem for me is I always just write chapter 1 to something. So it doesn't really feel like a short story, just the beginning of some longer tale.
Right.
So I have a hard time getting all the bits and pieces of a story into, a few paragraphs.
You can't.
You can't?
No. I mean, not in 30 minutes.
Oh.
So, I don't blame you or fault you for that.
I don't know how to feel about that.
You are absolved from not doing a whole story.
Well, thank you for the absolution.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Well, do you want to jump into the stories? Do you have anything else you want to talk about?
I'd just like to share the words.
That would help. Yeah.
Yes, the randomly generated words, which surprisingly, they really help me, at least, to get some direction. Because just seeing the words, I'm like, okay, all right, this is where I'm going with this. Yeah. The words. The words are, sorry. And these are randomly generated, although they seem very, very, very surprisingly appropriate for a detective story. The words are flicker, compass, cascade, tapestry, and glimpse.
Well spoken.
Thank you.
Yes.
So I guess I'm going to jump into my story. Okay. There are, just a warning, there are some bad words in here. So there's 3 bad words.
I suppose we should say before we get into it is each week we will actually read one of the stories on the podcast.
Yes.
And we'll discuss the others. So,
right. But this week we're both going to read our stories.
Oh.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're both going to read them. Cool.
Okay. Because it's our first week and I feel like we need as many examples as possible for the readers.
Fair.
And to see the different styles. Because I think it's fair to say that our writing styles differ greatly.
Greatly.
Yeah.
Tremendously, even.
Right. It's a tremendous difference. All right. So, warning, bad words. Also, there's a word which I apparently invented, which I am convinced actually is a word, but Word does not think it's a word. So...
Is that one with this little red squiggle under here?
Yep.
Oh.
That's the one. But I actually think it's a word. So anyway. All right. I'm going to read my story now.
Do you have a title for this story?
No.
Okay, so this is Untitled by Rachel.
I guess I should have put a title. But no, that just makes it even more mysterious.
Right. Oh, yes. Yeah. Titles give away far too much.
Exactly. Okay, so here we go. Rob risked another glimpse at the compass as his last flicker of hope began to fade. How could he have gotten so far off course? He knew this was a bad idea. Everyone told him this was a bad idea. At least they would have if he had shared his plan with anyone. Shit, he thought. Pride comes before a fall, and it certainly was his pride that had driven him to begin this late-night trek into the wilderness without telling a soul. But he had to find her. He was re-emboldened by the conviction that he was doing the right thing after all. If he didn't do it, who would? He shuddered at the thought of his unlikely new friend desperately waiting for help that never came, and then quickly shook it off. Help was coming. Not in the ideal form, of course, but something was better than nothing. He was well aware of her status in society and how little the majority thought of people like her. He, on the other hand, knew her worth, knew that she had an undeniable spark that had made a deep impression on him, such that thoughts of her seemed to have taken up permanent residence in his mind. Where had she come from? He shook his head. He couldn't think about that right now. Time was ticking, and every second that passed separated him even further from that spark. They had met in an all-day defensive driving class, of all places. He figured it would be easier to sit on his ass all day than pay the ridiculous fine they had tried to squeeze out of him for going 10 miles per hour over the speed limit. Fucking capitalists. The teacher opened with a joke about a policeman walking into a bar and being immediately recognized by the bartender, one of his past traffic stop victims. Rob stopped listening at that point, unable to muster the strength to be a cooperative audience member. The teacher was a man of about 50 named Lincoln, who looked like he'd been around the block more than a few times. Rob got the feeling that for Lincoln, teaching this class was an opportunity to display his comedic prowess, and who knows, maybe he would get his big break. A little delusional, but hey, if the guy was having a good time, more power to him. She walked in about 5 minutes after the class began. Rob noticed her, but was in no way blown away by her beauty. She looked to be about 30 years old, and he might have given her a 7 of 10 on attractiveness. About half of the chairs in the room were empty, but she unexpectedly took the open chair right next to him. He glanced at her, and she gave him a conspiratorial grin and a wink. Very familiar, this one. Somehow, but he couldn't describe how exactly, he could feel energy emanating from her. What is that, he wondered, bewildered. Chakras? Her aura? He chanced another look in her direction, trying to figure her out. There was something about her eyes. Before he knew it, they were seeing each other every day, but somehow it still wasn't enough for him. She nurtured something within him, filled some need that he had never realized he had. He dared to hope that he did the same for her. Then, just as quickly as she had appeared in his life, she was gone. She hadn't answered his texts for the last 2 days, and he reluctantly admitted to himself that she likely needed some space after 2 months of being together almost daily. On the third day of silence, however, he became concerned, convinced that something wasn't right. Upon arrival at her apartment after work, he found the door unlocked and slightly ajar. Odd. He cautiously entered, calling her name and searching every corner of the humble home, but she was nowhere to be found. A crushing dread began to cascade down on him like a tidal wave. On the kitchen table was a hastily scribbled note written in her unmistakable, sloppy handwriting. At the top was the name Chris, heavily underlined. The rest of the note consisted of a crude map which appeared to indicate a location outside the city, the easternmost border of the northern wilderness. Without hesitation, he went home, packed a few necessities, and started up his Ford Explorer, a relic from the early 90s. He would drive as far as he could, then continue on foot. It startled him when he suddenly realized that he was willing to do whatever it took to find her.
Okay.
The
I
end.
like it.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Thank you.
So clearly the words had an impact on where you started.
Yeah.
Because the first sentence, glimpse at the compass and his last flicker of hope.
Yeah, I don't know.
You just had to get those out of the way.
I did. The sentence popped in my head. It just so happened to contain 3 of the necessary words. So basically, that random word generator wrote that sentence for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And did it go where you expected it to when you started out writing it?
No, it didn't. I had no idea. All I knew was that there was going to be a male who was lost. Kind of desperately lost. But I did not know when I started that it was going to involve a, female character. And one thing that I like about this story is that it is not, it's not overtly, I guess you could say, romantic. It's not even, it never even mentions, if they have a romantic relationship.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. It just is like they have a connection, they have a bond, they have a strong attraction to each other, but it doesn't even, it could be platonic.
Yeah. Yeah, and nothing about it suggests that they have a romantic relationship, just that he finds himself inseparable from her.
Yeah.
In some way.
Yeah, exactly. And I find that very exciting.
That is exciting.
Thank you.
Well done. There was something else I was going to mention here. Oh, the sentence, she nurtured something within him, filled some need that he had never realized he had. What were you thinking that meant?
Well, I think that is why he has such an intense attraction to her, is that she is filling some hole that he never even realized that he had until he met her and it got filled and he was like, whoa. It's almost like he completes him in a way. Yeah.
Okay.
Not in a cheesy Jerry Maguire way, but that was Jerry Maguire, right?
Oh, sure. Let's say yes.
It's like,
I actually don't know.
you complete me.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And anyway, not in that way, but like in a real way that's not cheesy because I'm the one who wrote it, not whoever wrote Jerry Maguire.
Okay.
So to me, it feels more real and substantive.
Substantive.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah.
Why did they meet at a defensive driving course?
I don't know. I have no idea. But damn, you know what? It's almost like weird little tidbits from my own life came into this.
Yeah, I think you've told me about that defensive driving instructor and that joke before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, honestly, I made up the joke, but
Oh.
and you know what? If I'm just being totally honest with you, me and your wife did not meet at defensive driving, but we sure did bond at defensive driving.
Yeah.
And we don't have a romantic relationship.
With you and my wife.
Right.
Okay.
You'll be pleased to learn.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's comforting.
Yeah. So I think that played into it. I used to have my first car was a 91 Ford Explorer. So that just kind of like popped in my head. You know, it was kind of a composite of some life experiences of mine, I guess you could say.
Okay. What would you do to grow this story? Or now that you have this story in this form, what would you do with it next?
I think that's a great question, and I would like to develop the story more because honestly, whenever the time finished, whenever my 30 minutes finished, I was a little bit sad.
You have more there then?
Yeah, because I wanted to keep going. Like there was a lot more I wanted to say. We don't even know this female's name.
Do we know his name?
Yeah,
Oh, where was it?
it's like the first line.
Rob.
It's the first word.
First word. And
Yeah.
you never hear it again, I don't think.
I think it's like one more time when he's talking about the defensive driving teacher.
Yeah.
But yeah, Rob is the guy. The girl, we don't even know her name. I know her name, but I'm not going to tell you because it's a secret.
Oh.
But yeah, so I guess there's so much more that I would like to develop about this. Why is she kind of rejected or shunned by society?
Oh, you're asking
Yeah.
me. Oh, I thought it was rhetorical. She could be rejected. It could be something to do with what he sees in her that he's attracted to in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
That would be why she is ostracized.
Could be. Could be a number of things. But it begs the question, how could someone so amazing as she apparently is also be a pariah, if you will?
Well, it could be a myriad of reasons.
Right.
Yeah. So I guess you got to pick one
Yeah. So,
or two.
yeah, you know, it could be a lot of reasons, but I would like to delve more into her story. Where does she come from? And also his story. Where does he come from? He seems kind of like a loner, maybe, kind of a weird guy. But we don't really know that yet. So I want to just, and also like, where is she? You know, what happened? Who the hell is, what was that guy's name? Chris.
Rob.
No, Chris.
Oh, not
And Rob. But also, who the hell is Chris?
Oh, the note wasn't addressed to him. That's right. See,
Yeah.
I never latched onto his name. So
Yeah.
I thought Chris was his name by the time we got to that.
Oh, no.
And so I was like, oh, she left him a note.
Yeah, no. And I don't even particularly like the name Rob. I don't dislike it. I'm just not, it's not like, I was trying to go for like, whatever name popped into my head, you know? Just like a regular run-of-the-mill thing.
Yeah, names are hard, right?
They're very hard. Because we associate names, I think, with certain characters.
Right. So you have to be very careful whenever you use the name Daenerys,
For example.
for example.
Yeah.
So that name is taken.
Yeah,
spoken
exactly.
for.
Exactly.
So Rob, just simple male monosyllabic name,
Yeah.
and just okay, that's it. That's
He's
all
just
I
a
need.
dude.
And just some dude.
He's just some dude.
Yeah, names bog me down.
Yeah.
Because I feel like if the name isn't right, you can't explore the character well because you just keep returning to it and you're like, it's not right.
And it doesn't feel right.
It's not right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Names is tough.
Names is tough.
So, yeah, I would like to develop the story more. I'd like to figure out where Rob came from, where she came from, why is she rejected by society? Who is Chris? Where are they?
Where are they?
Well, obviously they're somewhere up north. Actually, I think they're probably in Maine. But yeah.
Why Maine?
Because I wanted them to be in the wilderness somewhere, and something just struck me. The thought northern wilderness struck me because in my senior year in high school, we were
That was like last week, right?
yeah, I just graduated.
Yeah.
We were coming up with ideas for our senior trip, and everyone was like, California, Disney World, whatever. And my idea was I wanted for our sponsors to drop us off in the northern wilderness. I started looking at a US map to figure out where I wanted to suggest and found that Maine is included in part of the northern wilderness of Canada.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah. And that was very exciting to me. And I wanted us to be dropped off in the middle of the northern wilderness and have like a week to find our way back to a certain destination. But the school didn't go for that.
Why, you think?
I don't know. I still wonder. I cannot figure it out.
Yeah.
But to this day, I wonder. To this day, a week later, I still wonder about that. But yeah. So, and you know, it could be Canada. I don't know. It's just somewhere up there.
When you said northern wilderness, I immediately went to like the Dakotas. Sort of in my head, I was picturing Fargo.
Oh yeah.
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 So interesting.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So
I would say is for notes that I may have for your story
uh-huh.
is, for one, the name. It might recur a little more than the times that it did. I really never latched onto his name. That's petty, but
Yeah.
the like his character, like who he is, like we learned that he's in defensive driving, for going 10 miles an hour over the speed limit, and the term or the sentence fucking capitalist, that's pretty characteristic. So we learn a little bit about him from there.
Yeah.
But kind of diving off into who he is could help enlighten us on at least who he thinks she is. Even if it's a long time before we meet her, getting to know
Touche.
him could be a way of helping us to get to know her.
I think that's a good idea.
Vicariously.
And you know what? If this story were to continue, I think that during the time that he's searching for her could be a good opportunity to get to know him better, because she will not have entered the picture yet.
I like it. Are you smelling the microphone?
Yeah. It smells delicious and plush.
Delicious and plush microphones.
Yeah. Oh, they're cute and delicious.
Just want to bite it.
I do.
Don't
Okay.
don't bite it.
I really want to. Okay, Matt, I feel like you should read your story.
Okay. I also did not title my story.
Oh, wow. And you gave me hell for it?
No, I said it was a good means of adding suspense.
No, I said that.
And I agreed.
Okay.
So this is my untitled detective story. Clayton said, "Hello, tormentor. Long time no see." Yawning, he reached down to fasten the Velcro straps across the shoes he wore, a gift from his wife. Ex-wife, he thought, and heaved his bulk up onto the too-hard seat of his Peloton. The distinction was academic. He and his ex-wife had been living together for about 2 years since their divorce. He tricked himself this morning by thinking he couldn't remember why they'd divorced in the first place, and decided he believed it today. Today was going to be a good day. And it was a good day, wasn't it? He'd finally received the promotion at the PD, Detective Sims. Clayton liked the sound of that. He'd been on a beat for 10 years before they even considered him for the position. The mundane traffic stops, late-night bar brawls and essential drunks, the brutal car crashes and domestic violence calls, all paint strokes on his professional tapestry. Fuck, Clayton huffed, looking down at Miss Oh So Fit and Peppy on the display telling him to pedal faster. He registered the command and filed it away as a maybe later. The distance reading just crossed the 1 mile mark. How did I get so out of shape, he thought, spots flickering in his vision. It didn't matter. Water under the bridge, or more likely over it and washed out to sea. The bike was a requisite set forth by his captain when they offered him his detective's badge. You have a great aptitude for the position, Glenn, his captain said, but that gut isn't muscle, and don't try to convince me otherwise. I blame those new cruisers, Clayton said, hoping to diffuse what he thought was them turning him back to his beat. They have so much tech, they practically do the job for you, Clayton said, hoping the joke wasn't a misstep. It hadn't been. Rather than turn him back, his captain issued him homework. This meant getting on this damned bike and riding at least 5 miles a day. Back in his youth, for that's how he viewed his late 20s now, when he'd started on the cops, he had run like the devil was chasing him. At first he used a treadmill, then out in the elements where running was called for. He'd relished the beat of the sun on his skin and the breeze soughing the sweat from his face. He never competed in marathons or half marathons or what have you, but he was recommended to try on more than one occasion. But then he had stopped running. You don't remember that, Clayton thought, and continued his pedaling. Here's to day one, he said aloud to the room, glimpsing the distance marker at 1.5 miles. He slumped, gasping, and succumbed to his torment.
Wow. Excellent.
Thank you.
Yeah. That was a very abrupt ending.
It was, because, again, I'm writing like chapter 1.
Right.
So there's something bound to happen after that.
Yeah. Okay, so I have a few questions.
Okay.
That last line, succumbed to his torment. Does that mean that he died?
Succumbed, I actually thought about that word for a while and couldn't think of a better alternative, so I just left it. But succumbed doesn't quite feel right, but I figured because of the opening line, hello, tormentor, and that's his bike, so he succumbed to the bike. So he basically succumbed to the fact that he must ride his 5 miles and be done.
Okay, so that I had 2 possible interpretations. One of them was that, but the other one, because you said he slumped, gasping, and I was like, is he doing that on purpose to make it like ambiguous? Like slump, usually slumped over. I'm like, did he have a stroke?
Would that be a better version? He just died on the bike, and that's the end.
That's what it seemed like. Like he slumped over and gasped and then succumbed to death.
That would make a nice round story. That would finish it off.
That would be amazing. But honestly, the way you have it is good too. And I think it's an interesting take that you have on detective story, because you're just writing a story about a police detective.
Right. Yeah.
Which is funny because whenever I saw the prompt detective story, I'm like, okay, like a mystery.
Right.
So I think that's very funny. Were you trying to be funny when you did that?
Actually, no. So full disclosure, I just recently read Mr. Mercedes, which is about a detective.
Oh yes, that does sound like him.
And whenever I think of a detective story, like you think like a PI or a detective on the cops, and so I always associate the detective character to the detective story more so than them actually going out and solving something.
Okay.
Like I think the detective character is the linchpin of a detective story for me.
Right.
So like you have to develop that character first before you can get into them detecting something.
Okay.
So that was more or less the angle that I was coming from. And I did try to set up a mystery, and that's why he stopped running. And so that was essentially the backstory that we're introduced to, but we know nothing about.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah.
there is a sense of mystery in there, but all under this facade that he's putting forward.
Right.
Facade's probably not right, but this front that he has.
No, facade is a front. Okay, so it's like, could the answer to that stopping running just be that he, I don't know, has arthritis or something?
It might be.
Okay. That's a very intriguing mystery. Okay, another mystery though is what is going on with him and his ex-wife, you know? Why I think it's really sweet that they still live together. Um but I wonder what happened. And then he also alluded to him being like he wanted to pretend like he couldn't remember why they divorced, um and decided he believed it. So it's almost like it's traumatic and upsetting for him to think about the reason they divorced, which makes me wonder if she had clubbed him in the ankles or something, and that is also why.
Damn.
Yeah.
That you know, that wasn't what I was thinking, but
Mm-hmm.
it's on the table now.
Well, it's just a thought. I mean,
So I wanted to set out to complicate him from the start. I didn't want him just a real flat character. I wanted layers, start peeling that onion.
right.
So I thought that's a really easy complication to introduce early, and it it allows you to ask some questions as the reader and not expect answers right away, and it gives room for his characterization to grow and for us to learn more about his ex-wife or not.
Right.
It could just be like table setting for what's to come, and just add a little bit of characterization to him.
Okay. I like that. So, if you could do something with chapter 2, what direction do you think you would go?
I would definitely make the next scene an introduction to his partner.
Okay, so you
Yeah,
wouldn't
his partner
have
on the force.
you wouldn't have him dying at the end of chapter 1.
That wasn't what I was going for.
Okay.
If I were to make this a short story, I actually, not gonna lie, I really like the idea of disguising his death as him just succumbing to riding a bike. That would actually make for a really interesting short story. I don't know. I'll play with it.
Okay.
See if I can make that work.
All right. So, okay, so you want to delve more into his partner being his police partner.
Well, yeah, just back in that detective trope, you've always got the detective and their partner, and they're always like either a really good fit or they just can't stand each other. It's
Right.
never between.
It's never just medium.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't know. There's so many cool tropey things
Yeah.
that you can do with a detective story that it makes it easy to. I think, like, as a writer, it makes it easy to have like a direction for the story, knowing these tropes that you can work inside of, and also knowing those, it gives you the space. Like, essentially, the tropes give you the space, and you just have to fill it in.
Right.
And so you can just follow these ideas. So he and his partner go to a diner and have breakfast.
Yeah.
And because he just got off of his bike, he can't have pancakes and waffles with syrup and
Right.
bacon. Now he can't do that
And
anymore.
he wants to smoke a cigarette, but
But now he's vaping.
yeah, he's
Yeah.
vaping instead because his ex-wife is on his ass about it.
Yeah. Yeah. The cancers.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I like it. It is tropey, but I agree that tropes can add a nice structure, and then you can change things within the tropes.
Right.
Yeah.
And because I don't write regularly, or just regularly, I think that's a great place to start. And especially once you have the framework of what you want. Because I guess it's hard for me to outline something until I get started, until I
Yeah.
know the character.
Yeah.
So I feel like setting out, I have to make the main character. And then from there, like after this, I probably could go through and do a more thorough outline. But without the character, I have no idea where the story should go.
Right.
So I just that's where I always start is the
Yeah.
character.
I like it. I feel like Stephen King would approve.
Yeah. You think so?
Yeah. With what you just said about starting with character, not necessarily with your story. JK, I
Fair.
think he would love your story.
Yeah.
Okay, so as far as some ideas, some feedback. Let's see here. It's hard to improve on perfection. You know what they say? If it ain't broke,
There's more to that?
yeah,
Oh, don't fix it.
right.
Right.
Exactly.
That's on me.
I'd have to really just pick it apart. Being an English teacher, I did see a couple of grammatical things which I would personally change just to,
I need examples.
or word choices.
Ooh, word choices. Let's
Yeah.
talk about syntax.
Okay. So let's see here. Just some repetition. I'm gonna have to look through it, to be honest with you,
Okay.
because I didn't prepare notes for that,
Oh, okay. Okay.
and I don't want to bore our audience with silence.
I'll just cut it out.
Okay,
It's
because I was
fine.
gonna ask you that. Like, can you cut out the couple of times I stumbled over my words when I was reading?
I can. I
Sweet.
won't, but I can.
Okay. Okay, hold on. Let me look. Okay, so on the line where you say, it didn't matter, water under the bridge, or more likely over it, and washed it out to sea. Are you saying that it washed the bridge out to sea?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I promise you there's things in here that maybe you corrected them.
I did do a proofread.
Yeah, because I saw these things when I read it earlier today. Okay. All right. I don't want to sound too nitpicky, but
Nitpick.
okay. So where you say he never competed in marathons or half marathons or what have you, but he was recommended to try it on more than one occasion.
Probably leave out it. Recommended to try.
Well, I just don't like he was recommended, because he wasn't recommended. Marathons were recommended. So it was recommended
It was
to him.
recommended to him. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So put that in the passive. But listeners, I'm not going to be a grammar Nazi, I promise.
Just to me.
Just to you.
She reserves that right.
Yes.
Yeah.
But to the rest of you, don't worry about it. Don't think about it.
We are not the nitpicky type.
No. I just felt like I should have some type of, criticism or something.
Well, and honestly, that's the kind of small critiques that I think helps me a lot, especially early on, is why doesn't this sentence sound right? It's like I recognize that sentence doesn't sound right.
But why?
That I couldn't quite place what it's essentially the sentence was almost out of order.
Right.
It's not that he was recommended to try it. It's that
Yes.
it was recommended to him to try.
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So actually, instead of being the well, he was recommended to try. Yeah, you just got to put it in the passive.
Yeah.
Instead of being the subject, he is the indirect object.
Because the direct object is the marathon.
Right.
Yeah. Or half marathon or what have you.
Right. Or it would be if the sentence was not being changed to the passive, because in a passive sentence, there is no direct object, but the subject is
Okay.
the direct object if it were in the active. But anyway, enough about that.
Enough about that.
Yeah, I think it's just lovely.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I actually really enjoyed writing it. Full disclosure, I thought of this while I was on my Peloton.
Wow. Well, I knew that you had a Peloton.
The difference is I don't subscribe to the service, so all I can do is just write it. There's no video or anything.
You don't get to watch that girl.
Miss, what did I call her?
Oh, so peppy.
Oh, so fit and peppy.
Oh, right. That lady.
Yes.
Okay. I think that's great. You know, taking things from your real life, you know, and just kind of tossing them in there.
I feel like you almost can't help it.
No. Well, you know, I feel like maybe a lot of times people try to come up with something totally fictional when in fact adding some things from reality really helps to sell the story.
Are you talking specifically for just like fiction or like fantasy and sci-fi? Like it helps to bring in like real world elements.
Not really
to
fantasy
root
and
it?
sci-fi. I mean, just like, you know, non-fiction, or sorry, fiction in general. I don't know, just like taking elements from your own life.
Kind of grounds it.
Yeah, it grounds it.
Yeah.
And also it is inspiring. It gives you more ideas.
Right. Yeah, because then once you take one and it works, suddenly you're looking everywhere and like everything is an idea suddenly.
Right.
That car that just drove by is an idea.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what it is, but it could be.
It could be. My cruel kitten is suddenly an idea.
And your kitten is cruel.
Yes. She is so
monster.
cruel. She's a monster.
Monster. Well, I think that's everything for episode number 1.
Woo!
How do you feel about it?
I feel great.
Did we nail it?
We fucking nailed it.
I think we nailed it.
Fuck yes.
I think we nailed it. Yeah. High five. Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah. See, that's how you can tell we're doing it in person.
Yeah, because you could hear our hands fiving.
Hand 5.
Yes.
Hand
you could
five.
hear that hand five.
Well, this is probably where we should come up with an outro script of some kind.
Oh, right. Well, we know what we could say. We could just say...
The intro again and start over.
We could just say... So... Join us next week on You Write, a podcast where you write.
You right.
Yeah.
But we do actually have to tell them to submit the stories to the subreddit and the web addresses and all those,
All right.
all that clerical nonsense.
Oh, yeah, shit.
So if you're listening to this podcast and you think it sounds something like Do the Right Thing, that's interesting.
Funny story.
If you feel like submitting a story for us to talk about on You Write, then head over to our subreddit at reddit.com/r/youwritepod. That's YOUWRITEPOD. YouWritePod. And there will be an episode posted there with the words for next week, which we should probably have those like ready to go
Right.
now to tell them
Yeah.
what words we're actually gonna have.
Oh, yeah.
So let me get
Where's
us
that
some words.
Generator, yeah. You need to put the link to the generator on where I put random word generator on the Google Doc.
All right. You ready for this?
Yeah.
Quicksilver,
What?
Harbor,
What?
Lantern,
Okay.
Eclipse,
Um,
and Mosaic.
are you sure those are random?
They're random.
Wow. Are you sure that your computer isn't eavesdropping and coming up with stuff?
I mean, no. But that seems
Okay.
pretty unlikely.
Okay.
All right. And for next week, what theme or trope did we want to do? Or prompt?
What about my first intro line?
Ooh, I like that. Let's do that.
Okay. Okay, so our prompts will not only be things like a detective story, like the first week prompt. Our prompts will also, they will be very multisensory. So we're also going to do the first sentence. That will be the prompt. And you take that first sentence and you write for 30 minutes about whatever follows. But the prompt that we give you has to be the first sentence. And there will also be, a sound effect prompts, image prompts, icon prompts, song prompts. By song, I mean music.
Yeah, to what degree we can play certain songs, copyright and all that.
Right. Or we
But
could just sing.
they don't want that. I don't want that.
I feel like we harmonize together pretty well.
I mean, okay, so we can harmonize, okay, but
That'd be hilarious. And just imagining us doing a cappella.
you
For
can't
a
see it, but I
prompt.
am just shaking my head.
He's SMH. He's SY8. No, he's SHH. He's
Did you make up a letter? Ish.
he's SHH, shaking his head. Because I said he's SMH, but he is not shaking my head. He's shaking.
Reach
his
over and just shake your head.
He's shaking his own head. Okay, so this next week's prompt is going to be an intro line. It's going to be a first sentence. So everybody jot this down, although we are going to have it on our
Subreddit.
Yes. I was like page, thread. Okay, we are going to have it on our subreddit. The white boxy van rolled quietly down the street for the third time that afternoon. That is the first sentence of your story.
And again, the words that you have to pick 3 of these words. They are Quicksilver, Harbor, Lantern, Eclipse, and Mosaic. Man, we're getting juicy words.
That's why
They're
I
tasty.
don't know that they're random.
Well, whenever I ask for 5 random words, I mean, it felt pretty random.
Well, you know what though? Okay, it's probably good for starting out because the juicier the words are, the easier I think it is to be inspired about a story. But when we're
just
trying,
the word mosaic.
yeah,
I love that word.
Just the word harbor. Okay, like
Let's not even talk about Quicksilver.
we're not even gonna go there. But here's the thing: like, if they were words like prepositions, like from, you know,
we just get 5 prepositions in an article.
that would be a bit tricky. It would not be tricky to integrate those words, but it would not give any direction whatsoever.
None.
No.
None.
Anyway, so we got some luscious, juicy, tantalizing words. Yeah.
Got any more descriptors in there?
I could go on for a long time, but I'm not going to.
Give me one more.
Scrumptious.
Scrumptious. Yes. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay, so as we mentioned before, head over to reddit.com/r/youwritepod and click on the first episode. You'll see the prompt for the first sentence for next week's story and the 5 words, and post it as a comment under that post. And we do very much encourage other people to comment on other people's stories and help them with their writing journey as well. So if you comment on somebody else's story, we will give you a shout out in the future episodes. But at this point, we just want to get as many people out there writing.
Because the more the merrier.
The more the merrier. Indeed. You got anything else, Rachel?
And remember, you write.
See y'all next week.
Bye.
Bye.